Hey, everybody, it is Mike. This is This Week in Sports Cards. I'm joined by T-Pott. How are you today?
Doing great as always. Thank you, Mike.
Awesome. Great to have you again. You're definitely in the short list on this rotation of people that I enjoy having on This Week in Sports Cards. And today we had some, I think, kind of big pre-news this week that I wanted to talk about. Ryan Hogue of Collectors went on his podcast and talked about some improvements that they're working on for Beckett and SGC. And I
Mhm.
know you do Cards on the Table with Jeff, and normally it's a high priority watch for me. I really enjoy it. I did not get a chance to watch it this week, so I'm curious for your thoughts on this. Tell me first of all about your impression of them doing SGC, kind of increasing the investment back to SGC after dialing it back last year. And he says that they're going to make some improvements to SGC.
Yeah, that seems odd. I would like to know what shifted. I mean, he made it pretty clear when he was on Neo's podcast, saying that they were making it more boutique and kind of you sort of read between the lines even before the massive decrease in the grading numbers that we saw from last year. That seemed like the death knell. Like this is it. Like they're going to eventually wind this down. I don't know. Maybe they keep it open for the few people that do it, but operationally they started scaling down. We know they took over some of that space and took over graders in Florida, and so I just would like to know what switched. I don't know if that was I mean, obviously businesses are entitled to shift priorities or shift gears or change strategy. Maybe there were outside investment people saying, hey, maybe we think this was the wrong move. um, Maybe they're worried about having to divest or sell off one of these companies if it does get caught up in antitrust. So they need it to
Right.
be a certain size to like
Yeah.
actually let them go again. Who knows? I'm not saying any of those things. I don't know, but it's an interesting. It seems like a real shift in priorities to say we wound you down, we took some of your graders, we took some of your scale and operations, and now we're going to spend the money to reinvest back into it. Interesting.
Do you think that they will actually improve turnaround time? Because turnaround time under SGC was like 5 to 10 business days. It's now, I don't remember what they are quoting, but we're seeing a lot of people who have submitted there, and it's more like 30 to 45 business days.
Yeah.
Do you think they're going to bring that back down to, let's say, 10 to 20? Or in my video, I said, I am skeptical that they're going to do this because it's going to cost them millions of dollars to do it. And I'm not convinced that there's a lot of value to them since submissions are still at record highs across the
Yeah.
board. And they talked about doing it across the board, not just SGC.
I have to imagine their number one priority will be making turnaround time shorter for PSA. And I don't imagine a scenario where they would actually want SGC to start doing better than what PSA is doing like it used to. That
Right.
was how they started gaining market share. And I really I don't see any reason why they would want SGC to grow at the expense of PSA. That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. So, do they want to try to do it across the board with all the companies? I mean, probably. There are times when I don't grade a ton of stuff, to be honest. I mean, I keep a lot of my PC cards raw, mostly because of the expense associated with grading, but also secondarily because I don't like not having my cards for 4 or 5 or 6 months and
Yeah.
waiting for them to come back. So I will say if PSA's grading times or any grading company's grading times were much shorter. Um, we talk about value proposition of cards and like the undeniable, fact of PSA kind of commanding that secondary market value. If they shortened that, I would probably look to do a lot more opportunistic grading to sell to help more fund my PC, like just that kind of activity. We know that can be pretty profitable, but a lot of times it's too much capital tied up. So I think they're going to want to drive the times down. I don't think they'll want a scenario where SGC or Beckett, for that matter, are like significantly out in front of what PSA is doing.
Yeah, but there's a point of diminishing returns with adding capacity where you're adding capacity and you're gaining demand from
Yeah.
adding improved capacity. But at some point, that demand doesn't increase anymore. And the amount of the demand increased is less than the amount of money you've invested in adding capacity. And I don't know where they find that improvement. Like I've worked
Yeah.
in customer support and software implementations for years, and adding capacity is extremely expensive. And at some point, you've added too much capacity, and there's that line where people are answering phones too fast, or people are implementing the software too fast,
Yeah.
and you're losing money.
I believe
And
that was the chapter called Economies of Scale in
right,
my college business courses.
right,
And yeah, and look, it opens you up to risk, right? If
yeah,
you scale, that's the conundrum. And I think that's a piece that a lot of people don't always understand or they miss about when things get painful and turnaround times get, behind and all of that. Go back to the COVID period when they had to shut down operations for the most part for almost a year. You can't just like flip these switches overnight. You can't build buildings or hire graders or do all this stuff. It takes time. Um, there's also just an operational expense to the bandwidth that gets chewed up by everybody involved in helping with the expansion. I'm sure they have other things that they could be doing internally to just improve other aspects of the business. And then if the numbers do go down, you've opened yourself up to being like, having it cost you a lot more money for the short term. And nobody can predict the future with a crystal ball. So I think business strategy, companies that require these large footprints for warehousing and scaling up employees are always faced with that dilemma of trying to read the tea leaves and see out into the future and say what's really going to happen here. We know the GameStop partnership has been highly successful for them. There's a number of different things they continue to evaluate. So I would say they must be very confident if they're going to sink the money into that, because you're right, it is expensive.
yeah. A couple of other things Ryan talked about giving the SGC and Beckett submitters the ability to vault and sell immediately upon grading, which is good. I know when PSA started doing that, that was kind of a boon for PSA and as well for grader to seller, the grader to sell pipeline. So you're sending in a card to PSA. Now SGC Beckett, they grade it, and then you can say we would like to have this vaulted and sold on eBay via PSA Store, which
Mhm.
is, as much as I dislike PSA, it's a great feature. It's very slick, works very well. They keep making improvements to it. Um, Now they're going to have PSA, or sorry, SGC and Beckett as part of that. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that seems like a no-brainer all around. They're helping
Yeah,
capture that segment of the market, and I'm really a big fan of that option for people to be able to do that. It removes that, it's that F word friction that people talk about from time to time, and being able to just move some of that stuff through it. It kind of ties into that point I just made. When I have done grading submissions in the past, very typically it's a mix of stuff I plan to keep, but I want it authenticated. Maybe it's some 90s card that I want to make sure is real or some of those things. And then other stuff that I want to sell because the grading multiplier is there. So if you have that opportunity to do that with those other companies as well and sell off a portion of them to help fund the whole thing, I think that's a pretty ideal scenario, honestly. I will be curious to see. I mean, obviously, you can send it to auction. They also just have the PSA offers where you kind of get your stuff and they're like, hey, we have these interested parties, um, whether that be GameStop and their repacks somehow through PSA as the questions around that, people
right.
thinking that PSA is the one making these offers when it's my understanding that it's usually companies like Cards HQ or other approved vendors who are trying to acquire inventory. I'll be curious to see if there's any real demand in there for Beckett and SGC cards, or if most of those companies continue to want to only have PSA. Because I
Yeah,
do know many of the large repackers almost exclusively go after only PSA graded stuff, and so do a lot of shops and dealers, unless it's really iconic stuff or some like RPA that somebody sent to Beckett or something along those lines, or maybe a vintage SGC card. But um, from Cards HQ's perspective, they're in the game of volume and inventory turnover. And so they tend to really prioritize PSA because it just tends to be the most liquid. People look for it. And sometimes the Beckett and SGC slabs just sit on the shelves.
yeah, and I think now you can do the buy it now through PSA's eBay store, which you weren't able to do 6 or 7 months ago.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I think you're right. I think you can list it that way.
So yeah, a lot of really good, slick selling features for submitters to PSA and now soon SGC and Beckett. Another thing he talked about was Beckett improving their label, and he was very quick to say, because a lot of people are afraid they're going to get rid of subgrades, and he was very quick to say subgrades are here to stay. Do you think subgrades will be here 2 years from now?
I do actually. If Beckett's here from 2 years from now, which is more of an open
Yeah.
question to me, I do think subgrades will still be there. I think they'll keep those. Um, Maybe that sounds like a contradiction. I'm just saying that off the cuff. I don't know what about that, but that's part of their identity. They acquired them. So he's saying they kept them. They bought Beckett for a reason. He's saying they're going to rebuild it or make it better. They apparently want to make a label change. And if that's the case, I think they have to keep the subgrades. I think that's a differentiator if they're really serious about keeping the business. If they get rid of the subgrades, to me, that will be yet another sign that they don't want Beckett to be around and that they're trying to kill them.
Yeah, but they said the same thing about SGC. The differentiator was the quick turnaround time, the customer service, and then they did a lot of things to destroy that from SGC. Now they talk about bringing it back, of course, but he could just be paying that lip service now to the Beckett people who are fans of Beckett
Yeah.
and saying that, and then in 18 months they're going to take away the subgrades, which I'm not saying they're going to,
Yeah.
but so adding subgrades, I assume, has some added expense.
Yeah.
And so maybe, I don't know, it'll be really interesting to see.
Yeah. It's really tough to know. Like I try to think about I try to stay away from making like strong declarations when I don't have any evidence,
Yeah.
but I like the conversation. I've met Ryan a few times, not like didn't spend a lot of time with him, but he seemed like a really nice guy. And I've in the past really, he kind of seemed like a collector. I want to be able to take people off for, on their word, but when it comes to like big businesses and things, it's not so much a personal element at that point as much as it is business strategy and how companies need to execute those things to get to their goals. And so it's just tough to know. If I were Beckett's biggest fan right now, or had been SGC's, then I would have been worried. And so far with SGC, I think that's proven to be right. It just remains to be seen, like how serious they are about it. But it is a little odd. Like flash forward a year from now, if Beckett's numbers have dropped 80% like SGC's have a year from now, and SGC hasn't recovered either, at what point does that just look like really bad egg on your face as like an overall corporation for consistently saying this isn't what we're going to do, and then it winds up happening? So that almost like, to me, adds a little bit of credence to it. Like I wouldn't want the optics of that.
Yeah, that's a good point. If I were Beckett's biggest fan right now, I'd probably be excited. Beckett was already, I don't know how to phrase it. They were on the downswing and things looked bleak for them. And now, with some more investment behind them, a bigger company that wants to improve them, maybe I think that there's more hope for Beckett right now than there was 3 months ago.
Yeah, I can't tell. I thought Beckett was going to be totally gone a year ago. I really did. After just all the news about their owner and the felonies and fraud and just inside, I don't know if I'd call it insider info, but just talking to some people who had been impacted by turnover and different roles and shuffling around of people. And I just thought they seemed like they were nosediving in a way that was not recoverable. But obviously they had enough sustainable business. My big conspiracy theory is that I think Beckett, I feel very strongly that Beckett actually loosened their grading standards and started giving out quite a few more 10 pristines and black labels overall in an effort to try to win business. Because if you're the submitter, you just want the best grade. You don't even care if it's actually that quality. You get back a BGS 10 pristine and it's got a little corner ding. Most people are going, nice, got it. So I think it'd be interesting to dig more into the gem rate numbers for that and to see, but obviously another big part of that was just Pokemon, which has a higher gem rate overall on certain sets and certain cards. And so people knew, send it in and try to hit that black label and get your, hyper crazy, ridiculous, like 5 to 10x premium on the price point for that card, if over even a PSA 10.
So let's say you get a pristine 10 on a big card, an iconic card, and you put it up for auction, and it's going to go for 6 figures. Normal, like an actual legit pristine 10. But over on Twitter, people start taking screenshots of the card, and they're pointing out little flaws that shouldn't be there for a pristine 10. Corner, you see this all the time, and I'm sure it happens on Instagram too. I'm not very big on Instagram at all, but on Twitter, people are taking screenshots of cards and tearing apart the grade. Does that actually affect the sale price in an auction or in a private sale? Or is Twitter just so small, even though it feels big when you're on it, feels like everybody's talking about something, that it doesn't matter at all? And the people who are buying six-figure cards couldn't care less and aren't even familiar with that idea.
I think it's very case by case for who the bidder and the next high bidder are, because some people do care. I would say if it's somebody who legitimately is like a very strong, more pure collector type who cares about that and understands and values paying the premium for that extra half subgrade difference, they might be scrutinizing it and say, nope, I'm not going to do it. This isn't a true, pristine. I've seen the evidence. But I think the vast majority of people, they buy the slab and the number, and they don't necessarily care if it actually has a defect on the card. I think we see that across the board with like 1996 Topps Chrome basketball refractors, where you can have a PSA 10 that's completely hulked out, and people pay more money than they do for a 9 that has beautiful color and good centering, and maybe just had some defect somewhere, a surface issue that you can barely notice. So it probably is case by case, but I think it would generally skew in the direction of it doesn't matter. Like, people are going to pay for that.
Yeah, that's what I think too. Before we move on, any other thoughts on the Ryan Hogue PSA podcast?
I threw a harebrained idea out there that it wasn't so much meant to be sensationalism, but I kind of wonder how this would work. And again, I don't have any, more inside info into the broader strategy of what Collectors is planning to do with the 3 grading companies. But knowing how SGC has wound down, and knowing how we all have access to those gem rate reports and seeing like the sports versus non-sports breakdowns and some of these other things, I threw it out there like, why not just officially make SGC a vintage only company, kill BVG, and make Beckett 1980 and forward, and just split the two and serve those two audiences? I'm sure they're out there. I don't know of many, if any, vintage collectors who prefer BVG over SGC or PSA. And that was kind of my harebrained idea. I haven't read through the comments on Cards on the Table yet to see how many people thought that was ridiculous or maybe liked it. But for simplicity, and if you really are trying to like streamline operations, that seems like it might actually make sense to me. What to do about non-sports, I don't know. Maybe they also just want to start really promoting Beckett for that or something. But it already kind of exists. Like, the dynamic already, there's certain types of cards that we know people like to send to Beckett because of the subgrade dynamic and thicker cards and patches and things along those lines. And the vast majority of the stuff going to SGC, and certainly their biggest fanboys, are the vintage community. So I don't know. What do you think of that idea? Crazy?
No, in fact, I talked about that very same thing with Greg maybe 3 weeks ago, not long after the announcement was, doing. I think that they will. I don't know if BCCG even still exists, but if it does, I think that they'll shut that down. I also think that they will shut down BVG, and SGC will become the vintage grader. Okay. I didn't say I think it will, but I said, what if they just make SGC their vintage grader? Beckett would be like their 1980 to 2010 grader, and then PSA the more modern and more ultra modern. So pretty similar.
Okay, so there's one of two possibilities based on this. One is great minds think alike, or maybe not great minds. So
mediocre minds.
Yeah, mediocre minds. You and I think alike. Bald minds think alike. The other possibility is that, as I do very often, I turn on podcasts driving to and from work, but I'll zone out on like a work thing in my mind. And I heard you say that without consciously processing it, and then woke up one day for Cards on the Table and was like, I think I have an idea. Maybe this is, I don't know. It's both of those. It's 50-50 on that, to be totally honest. But I didn't consciously remember hearing you say that.
No, that's okay. I understand. No, I think it's a good thought. I'm not saying I think it's going to happen, but I think it's certainly a possibility. I'm sure that it's something that they've tossed around, or they will toss around, as a, why don't we just do kind of generational card products? So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
They talked about the label change for
Beckett. He called it a fiasco, the one that they tried a couple of years ago, which I enjoyed.
That was a real fiasco. There
It
wasn't
really
much I
was.
liked about it. I will say I'm more of a fan of like slightly rounded corners on slabs than the super sharp pointy ones. So I think they were trying to kind of move in that direction, more like a CGC slab.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea, but I don't know. There's so much psychology to the slab and then to the label. The acrylic you choose, how they're sonic welded shut, does it fog up, inner sleeve or no? There's a lot to decide on with that, but in general, with their label, like what do you think of the current Beckett label? What do you think they should consider? And then should they also consider something different? And if so, how much with SGC?
Well, I have 2 Beckett slabs, and that's it, and, so I'm looking at them right now. One of the big problems I have not aren't that aren't the slab themselves, it's that you have a Beckett logo to the left of the label, and so the
Mm,
label looks very off-center, it's right justified on the slab, and to me, it looks terrible,
trying to see.
and then it's lettering is tiny.
It
You
is very
can't read
tight.
it. Like, I can read all of the PSA slabs that surround it,
Yeah.
all the labels,
Yeah.
but I cannot read a single word or letter on the Beckett slab, and I'm
Yeah.
only 3 feet away from it.
So I thought the B that they changed to was really stupid, like
Yeah,
compared to the old one. To me, like Beckett is supposed to, whether you agree with it or not, based on the current version of the slab, it kind of is supposed to carry that weight of being like a little more fancy and elegant, maybe than the other companies, a little more
sure.
high end seeming. So I think they should keep that. The metallic finish on the gold 9.5s to me looks nice. I sort of proposed a font change, like rethinking, the sizing and spacing and just having somebody do a good designer do some optimization around that because I agree it's really small. Um, some of the other more pop-up grading companies have put like subgrades on the back. I don't think you want to do that. I think you
I
still need
know.
to keep it on the front so you can see it
Yeah.
in the showcase and online. But I think they should just honestly keep that gold throughout and not have like the other. Yeah, they got rid of the white, but not have the silver. Just standardize something along those lines. And it's funny. I'm a big kind of like alignment snob when it comes to font and how things look in apps and on spreadsheets and things. So
Me too.
yeah, I think I could get behind that maybe being reconfigured.
Yeah, the other thing that bothers me is one of my 2 Beckett slabs is an autograph, and on almost every Beckett autographed authenticated card, the autograph grade is a sticker next to the label, and it's off center, it's tilted.
They got to figure that out.
How They have to fix it, and I've gotta think they will. It just
Yeah,
seems like the most obvious thing.
yeah.
Uh, I hope they do.
I have seen so many Beckett slabs where the full label is just like halfway
Yeah,
down inside of it, and like I had one, I couldn't sell it. I was like, I can't have this in my collection. It was one where I bought it on eBay, and then when it came, it was crooked.
yeah,
I don't know if the seller had like tapped it to get it like
sure.
flush, or if something happened during shipping. Could be either one. But I couldn't get it back, and it was driving me nuts. And I like listed it at less than I had bought it for, and it just wouldn't sell. Like nobody wants that. Nobody
Yeah,
wants the label crooked.
yeah. I have a really interesting story coming out probably on Monday of a guy who had PSA fix a card that was the card had slid down in the slab,
Ooh.
and the story's bigger. I'm not gonna obviously give away much of it here, but so PSA agreed to take it back and fix it, and he sent it back at their cost, which
Mhm.
they're good about that, and then they sent it back to him, and it was still loose, and maybe even more so than before. So, it's a crazy story. That's a PSA slab, not a Beckett slab, but
That's odd.
yeah.
That's very odd. What about SGC? Should they change anything with them?
I love the colors of the SGC slab, but there's so much black space on
Yeah.
the SGC slabs, and they're bigger. I think they could streamline those slabs, and that's not a very popular opinion in the vintage space, but that's okay. That's where I stand on it.
I think they could optimize. I think they could make the slab size the same as other companies' slabs more
Mhm.
because there's a real dilemma if you have like a Zion case like I have sitting here,
Yeah.
and then you try to put like Zion case actually has to sell like Zion case XL, I think, or something they call it with like wider rows. so you can fit SGC slabs, but then your
Right.
PSA ones like and CGC like slide all over the place.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. Maybe I don't know if that'd be good for business for Zion case, or people have to rebuy new ones that fit once they if they were to move away. But I think making it smaller, if they still want to keep that tuxedo look with like the matted framing inside of it, could still work. But the whole thing doesn't feel very premium, and those things just pop open. Like you just take a little flathead and you can just, I mean, people open them with their hands. There's some security aspects to it,
Yeah.
some label design. I think they could still respect tradition with the tuxedo and make it better overall.
Yeah, I agree. Uh, Next thing I wanted to talk about was the LeBron 23rd season patches. Have you seen
Yep,
these?
I have.
I don't know what your take is on LeBron. It doesn't really matter, but let's hear it. Do you like LeBron? I sensed something when you said, "Yup, I have."
I do not like LeBron.
Me neither.
LeBron is my least favorite athlete of all time.
Wow.
For a lot of, I mean, maybe putting aside like actual convicted criminals and like
Sure.
really bad people, but like, look, the NBA was my favorite sport growing up, followed closely by the NFL, and my favorite sports team of all time is the '04 Pistons that, just dominated the Lakers, much to everyone's surprise outside of Michigan in, back then. And we had a real thing going. We had a real franchise that was humming along, still had the same strong defense first identity, maybe not of like body slamming people from the Bad Boys era, but like, next best thing. Um and it was just so clear to me like the NBA was LeBron was the new chosen one. He was next man up, right out of high school. And if you watched the games, I really don't think it was confirmation bias. In fact, I've had a lot of high integrity Cleveland Cavs fans and others tell me, like, oh no, LeBron definitely got every call. And that's the nature of sports these days.
Tom Brady too.
It's Tom Brady. It's the superstar treatment for a lot of people. Mahomes, I'm a Chiefs guy, and Mahomes has definitely gotten calls.
Yeah.
These leagues are are self-interested, and they're monetary driven. And like when the oh gosh, what's his name? Why is it escaping me? Tim Donaghy, like Netflix or whatever
Right.
documentary came out about the betting scandals. None of that surprised me. Rasheed Wallace has some really funny sound bites about
I
just
love
what that was
Rashid.
like playing. I love Sheed playing against LeBron, and it was so aggravating because we had a better team than those teams, but it's just put his head down, get called for the foul, and then you're bounced out of the playoffs. And there's other reasons. I grew up actually crying every time the Bulls won championships because we were Pistons fans. And so, I grew up in a house where my dad was like, we hate the Bulls, we hate Jordan, we don't like any of this. I have a much different attitude toward Jordan now that I'm older. And it's just one of like admiration for greatness and
Yeah.
a true competitive spirit and being an incredible two-way player. And I just think LeBron is completely about himself. And you know what? Maybe the hard part in all of that is if I had been LeBron and this like anointed kid from a young like 14, I don't know. I probably would be the same exact way with all of
Yeah.
that and just everybody literally calling you King James and all of these things. It's
Uh,
tough, but I like players who convey and demonstrate humility. It's why Barry Sanders is my favorite athlete. It's why I like John Stockton. It's why I like Giannis. It's why I like a lot of those types of players who just play it competitive, spirit, intensity, but humility. That's what I like.
I love Giannis.
Yeah.
He's so great. Yeah, I agree. And there's more. Like LeBron's such a whiny, selfish guy and I'm a Celtics fan, so I'm legally required to hate him, just like you are.
Yeah.
But there's like, I also sometimes say to myself, if Giannis did this, would I hate it, or do I hate it because it's LeBron? Sometimes it's just because it's LeBron, but oftentimes it's like, man, Giannis would never act this way.
Yeah. The integrity check for me on it is, people point out like, oh, Mahomes is a crybaby sometimes. And I'm like, yeah, I hate it. Like he is. You're right. Sometimes
Yes,
he throws a fit.
right.
And you know what? You know who
Jason
else
Tatum
did?
too.
Yeah. You know who else did? Tom Brady. People forget that, but Tom Brady threw tantrums too on the sidelines. A
Screamed
lot
at
of
his
these athletes
teammates.
do, screamed at his teammates, Um, yeah. So yes, it's okay to say I really like an athlete because of XYZ, but I wish he wouldn't do X, and
Yeah.
but there's a collective. It's pretty much a holistic disdain for me on the part of a lot of things with LeBron, and you can't deny his ability and the things he's done.
Yep.
But
Agreed.
not a fan.
So these patches, is there what do you think about them? Like the rookie debut patches in baseball, which they're adding to all sports now. I like them a lot. It's starting to feel now like it's almost like, are these as valuable as we're making them out to be? Or the fact that they're putting it on him for however many games, they did say multiple games, and then they're going to take it off to put it into cards, many cards, and they're going to give him some, I think, too.
Yeah.
Is that as cool as the rookie debut patch?
No, the rookie debut patch is singularly, legitimately, as I think Mahan said earlier, it might have been Ruben, one of them, like, it might legitimately be the greatest innovation in sports cards in a long time. It's rare to come by that. It's novel, but it's not gimmicky. It was a really smart move because we live in a time where the manufacturers, which Fanatics inherited via Topps in the present zeitgeist of the hobby, every player has 2, 3, 20,000 different rookie cards. And in baseball in particular, where they launched these debut patches, it's Bowman first or bust in a lot of ways. Like the Bowman first autos in particular, because it's their first card. There's no other Bowman firsts, really have carried a premium. They stand out amongst the crowd, and basketball and football don't have that in the same pedigree. They have college jersey stuff, but it hasn't caught up in any kind of significant way. So they managed to really create a card, one and only one card, that stands out in the sea of the rest as like a true iconic piece to compete with like the Bowman Super Auto. And, those two things kind of stand up against each other. And I think the debut patch has sort of already taken that. It's not easy to do, to like just come up with an idea, have it take off really fast, and not have it be really based on hype. There's hype around it, but it's like, I think it's legitimately warranted. So I think those were genius. And I've been happy to give flowers where they're due, as I'm, I guess, sitting here wearing a Topps hoodie. The award winner patches that they give to like the Cy Young and the MVPs in the following season, I think they look amazing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure they should wear them for every game of the year. Maybe they should only wear those for the opening game that they play in the following season, and maybe those should just go into one and only one thing. I will say I really wanted to try to get a Tarek Skubal. I would have loved to have the Tarek Skubal Chris Sale like dual patch with the autos, but I don't remember how much it went for, but it was like 100 times what I would have been able to pay for it.
Yeah.
So I'm bummed in a sense with both of those that I don't want to say I'll never own one, but like they just have gone up to a price range where even like scrub relief pitchers only pitch one time for the Tigers. I don't want to pay for it.
Yeah.
They're really cool. The LeBron one to me is like kitschy, gimmicky. I mentioned on Cards on the Table, I think it looks like an FC Barcelona logo, like the colors they chose. It reminds me, I was staring, I'm like, where have I seen this before? And then I realized, I'm like, oh, it's like a Barca logo. Like it conjures up Messi, not LeBron for me or something. And I don't love the design of the logo. I think they would have been much better off making it look really fancy like the gold ones that they do for baseball, and doing something special with like a 23 and just a gold logo man or something would have been much cooler than this like brand new kind of goofy looking thing. All that being said, just from a purely business perspective, I don't know if I'd throw the word genius at it, but it's going to work. People are going to lose their minds for this.
Yep.
The cards are going to go for a crazy premium. I'd be careful if I were somebody in the market for one of those, some LeBron super collector, or if I were Kevin O'Leary wanting to pay big money for some card, to make sure I understand just how many of those patches are going to make it into cards. Because I think Topps was still making Wemby rookies in 2025.
Yeah.
When it was 2023, they came out with Mercury and were like, this is his RPA. And then they released like 3 more sets with RPAs in them. So just be careful with that type of scenario. I don't know what happens to the rest of them. It's weird to just like pull them off and be like, here you go, LeBron. Is he going to like give it to his friends? Or Yeah, so I think they should have just done it for like one significant game or something, and maybe for
Yeah.
the Sacramento game where they said he started his career, and just be done with it. Like,
Yeah.
and that would be more significant.
Yeah, and for anybody who's not familiar, it is the chalk toss, the iconic chalk toss outline, a silhouette of him doing that.
Yeah,
Did you ever watch the TV show Arrested Development?
a little bit. Yeah, yeah, a
So
little bit.
there was a character called Steve Holt, and
Mm.
he would go Steve Holt and hold up his hands over his head,
What
and
it looks
that's
like.
what the silhouette to me looks like in the patch is Steve
Yeah, it
Holt.
could have been more like arms out instead of like
Right.
touchdown. It's like,
Yeah.
um, yeah. Now that I'm thinking about this, what would have been really iconic and amazing to do, maybe and less gimmicky, would be make it look really premium, logo man, do something, and instead of maybe trying to put the chalk toss on the patch, just have the logo man or something, and or some other. I guess they tried to do an iconic image instead of Jerry West. I get it, but he does the chalk toss. Get an image of him doing that at the Sacramento game where he's going to wear the patch, and then turn that into the card, some really cool, like dramatic looking thing with the patch and an auto on it, and like, don't overdo it. Just
Yeah.
one and done.
Yeah. Agreed. Do you have time for one more topic?
Sure.
All right. So Carl Anthony Towns just did some, I think one of one or maybe one of two cards for his wedding. And I think he's gifting them to people. I'm not sure. I don't know all the details because it's a Knicks player and I'm a Celtics fan. Uh, and then you had Bobby Witt, who got some custom cards for his wedding. Now, Tiger Woods just gave away 415 custom autographed cards at his 50th birthday party. Is this the new celebrity gift? Is custom cards?
Well, it's funny you say that because I've got a autoed card coming to you as a nice little gift of me. I don't know. I'm sure people like it. I've had people ask me for my auto, and that's real weird. I don't know, but if they want it, yeah, maybe. Sounds like a cool trend. Like cameos became a thing, and like paying for cameos just for somebody to say something. This is a little maybe more personal. I don't know where you draw the line between like pride and humility when you're like undeniably a great athlete and you know it and everybody knows it. And so is it like weird and self-serving to do
Right.
that? Or is it more like a token? I think if I'm somebody like Bobby Witt, like I know these athletes, a lot of these athletes, baseball and whatever, they really, you see how emotional their parents get in the crowd when they make their debut or hit their first home run, and the players too, or like when I love it when the dads pitch at the home run derby to their sons when they're competing, and like you're talking about a lifetime of a lot of work and money that was spent to try to get them to where they are, and so there's quite a bit of appreciation. So if my son grew up and was a major league ball player or something, yeah, heck yeah, I'd want one of his cards and want it signed. Like, I guess I would really like that. And same thing if I had if one of my friends, actually Scotty B, one of my good friends who I do spitballing with, he collects Billy Butler and he knows Billy Butler. Like he's friends with Billy Butler. So so he collects. He's like a super collector. Like he has like 100 and some one of ones of Billy Butler and goes after every Billy Butler card he can get. So
that's cool.
I don't know. That's pretty. I think it's a good idea. I think that's kind of fun. How many of those will make it onto the golden auction or something if it's Tiger?
Right. Yes. With 415 of them out there, you know that some will.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Any final thoughts on this week?
Oh, let's see. Who's your Super Bowl pick?
Patriots.
What do you how do you feel about them this year? Like they obviously their record was incredible. May's stats undeniably incredible. People make their arguments for he or Stafford, and I can understand both sides there. In fact, the MVP kind of reminds me in football of very much of like the debate between Raleigh and Judge in baseball, what it was this year. There's some overlap there, but do you like their chances? Do you think they're as good as their record suggested, or do you have concerns that their schedule was obviously one of the easier ones in football, and it might be a little bit of a mirage or a flash in the pan?
Yeah, so for sure, all of the above. And Mac Jones is so young, and he throws a perfect deep ball.
Drake May.
Yeah, did I say Mac Jones? Oh, man. My my friend James is a huge Mac Jones fan, so I'm constantly giving him crap
I
about
thought you
Mac
were, like,
Jones.
going somewhere with that, like a
No,
joke or something, and yeah.
no, I'm constantly giving him crap about how well Drake May is doing now, and he's
Yeah.
bitter about it. He's a huge Patriots fan, but he loved Mac. He's a big Alabama fan, so he loved Mac Jones, and, now he's bitter about the fact that Mac Jones is the backup on San Francisco, but
Mhm.
plays well for San Francisco. Anyway, sorry. Yes, Drake May throws a perfect deep ball, but he's 23, maybe?
Yeah, he's
And
young.
so it's hard, even though Tom Brady was 23 or 24 when he won his first Super Bowl,
Mhm.
it's hard for me to say this team's going to win it all. I would never say it anyway, but their defense is really good and their offense is good enough.
I was looking at the field this year. This was a really rough year for me from a football fandom perspective because the team the only team I care about the most is the Lions, and it's so,
Mm,
masochistic at this point. Like, it
yeah.
just I hate it. I put it on my Instagram story, like, what do you do when your favorite teams just, like, the ownership refuses to, like, commit and try to win things? And we were so close a couple years ago to what literally would have been a lifelong dream of Chiefs Lions in a Super Bowl. It should have been the Chiefs and the Lions.
Yeah.
They Lions went into Arrowhead to open the year that year on Thursday Night Football and won in a nail biter.
Hmm.
It was so close. So this year didn't go well with the Lions flopping and the Chiefs, floundering and Mahomes tearing his ACL and Notre Dame. I'm a fan of Notre Dame. They got snubbed out of the playoff, and it just I'm feeling very bitter about football. I say all that to know that what I'm about to say may be coloring this statement a bit, but like I was looking at these teams this year, and this NFL season just felt so bizarre to me that I don't think there are actually any good teams this year. Like if you were to look at the last 25 years, I'd have to go back and check every team, but whoever wins this year might be the worst Super Bowl winning team in the last 25 years. I just don't actually think anybody's been consistent.
Yeah.
At times, the Rams looked like they were the best team in football, and then they just went on like a 3-game losing streak and looked terrible. The Bears, who I'm not a fan of, I'm still convinced aren't actually a good team and keep finding weird ways to win. And I think Caleb Williams has a lot of upside. He's super inconsistent. He's also super young. The talent's obviously there, and like there's a strength of schedule things with the Patriots, and the Broncos won like 9 games by 4 points or less, and
Right.
it just is a really really weird season. Like
Yeah.
you can't convince me any of these whoever wins this year would have like beaten the Chiefs or beaten the Eagles or beaten these teams that competed in past seasons, Patriots, Bucks. Like I don't know, but I'm sure anybody who's a fan of the teams that are still in it this year will disagree with me. I'm personally rooting for a Bills Rams Super Bowl at this point. I'd like to see Josh Allen win. I really like him, and
Me too, but I don't want to see him win this year.
yeah, I don't blame
I'll
you.
root for him if the Patriots aren't in the Super Bowl.
That's
But
good considering a divisional team,
yeah,
But yeah,
I do like Josh Allen a lot.
yeah.
And my nephew picked the Bills from a very young age for some strange reason.
Ooh.
He lives in rural Maine, and everybody's a Patriots fan, and somehow he became a Bills fan, and so yeah, we always talk about that.
Buffalo vibes are more like rural Maine, I imagine, than
Maybe,
Austin is. So
maybe. So yeah, rough year for football for you, but at least you have the Pistons.
yeah, in the ultimate irony, I have the Pistons in a year that I've found it just incredibly difficult to watch the current brand of NBA.
Ah,
It's so hard. I watched them last night, the fourth quarter against the Suns, and I was just like,
Cade
I don't know.
Cunningham, what did he shoot? 3 for 16, and they still won.
Yeah, he had a really rough game. It was like Suns without Booker and without several people, and um, Dylan Brooks was doing Dylan Brooks things, and Grayson Allen had 33, and it was just a weird game. But they won. But come playoff time, I will definitely be watching. I think the intensity turns up then, and I do like that they're playing gritty and defense, and I think that's showing something in the NBA. Like you need to play defense. You really need to play. Last thing I'll say, my big hot take is it was a little bit of like an epiphany moment. It was like, what if Luka's the new James Harden?
So a guy who is amazing offensively, terrible defensively, and never wins anything?
Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, he went to a championship. He and Kyrie went together in a year that I didn't see that coming. They lost. But it's similar game, similar gaudy stats, triple doubles, step back threes, phenomenal, incredible, undeniable talent on offense, but like just stepping aside, watching guys blow by you, no real hustle on the defensive end.
I remember that championship because the Celtics beat them.
Yeah, of course.
I watched every second of it.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right, T-Pott, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. This was a blast as always.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure.
We'll do it again.
Yeah. See you all soon.